Welcome everyone to the Qualsys webinar today. Very excited about today's webinar. There's a lot of people on the line. Holy cow, it seems like more and more you guys seem to join these things. I'm glad you're enjoying them, and I'm glad that you guys keep coming back, keep coming back for more. Before we begin, I want to do a quick poll, find out if this is your first webinar, or if you is your second webinar, or maybe you come to as many as you can. Curious to know what kind of audience we have today. We had an almost unprecedented number of people RSVPing and registering for this event. So curious to know what the breakdown is, if you guys are all returning or something else. So as you guys are filling that out, I want to direct your attention to the GoToWebinar control panel that you use to log into the webinar today. For those of you that are on the phone but did not log into the GoToWebinar control panel, not only will you not have a way to interact with us, but you won't be able to see the screens that we're sharing, and the webinar tool won't actually give you credit for attending today. So you might end up getting an email tomorrow saying, "Oh, you forgot to attend," or we missed you. You should have come." So if you have the possibility to either join at a computer, or you can download the GoToWebinar app on your phone or tablet, it will not only give you the credit, but then you'll be able to interact with us. And that's our goal, is that this isn't just us talking, but that you have a chance to ask questions and interact and make comments and share your experiences and things like that, and we can all learn together. So looks like we do have a good percentage of people that are brand new this time. That's excellent. Welcome. Thanks again for coming. I'll also direct your attention on the GoToWebinar control panel to a section called either chat or questions. I'm not sure how it appears on your screen. Different people on different machines are going to show different ways. But that's how you're going to talk to us today. Because there's so many people on, we won't be able to keep you off of mute, and it would just make too much background noise. But we still want your participation. We want your interactions. So you can type in a chat or a question, and we'll be able to see that. I'm going to go ahead and close this poll real quick. Direct your attention to that chat or question bar, and I want you to go ahead and start typing. Tell me where you're from. Maybe tell me what the weather's like. Tell me, make sure I can hear you. Whatever you use. I want to make sure that you guys are all here. Looks like we've got Priscilla. Welcome. Thanks for coming in. Mr. Buckley, welcome. I'm glad you're on today. Danny is here. Welcome. Looks like we got David and Frank, Ryan, Rich, Kenneth, Megan. Is it Aaron? A-I-R-E-N. Aaron, that's a very interesting name. My wife's name is Aaron, if that's how you pronounce it, or if it's pronounced Aaron or something. That's really cool too. Fred, Charles, Mike, Pete, Dan, Tracy. We've got so many familiar names too. People that have been on every webinar that we've held, and I really appreciate you guys coming back. So thanks again. West Virginia is beautiful outside. Glad to hear it. Ventura, California. We got Ohio, Phoenix, Arizona, Virginia Beach. Tom, from Virginia Beach, I was actually born in Norfolk, and that is the proper way to pronounce it. My father was in the Navy down there, and I grew up, first couple of years living down in the Virginia Beach area. So very near and dear to my heart. I'm actually from Charlottesville, Virginia, so not too far away. That's where I grew up. Ontario, Canada. That's great. We got some great distances here too. Chicago, Georgia, Philly, Charlotte, Colorado, Michigan, Vermont. Boy, we got people from all over the place. Greenville, South Carolina, Chicago, Canada, Colorado, Myrtle Beach. It just keeps coming in. British Columbia, Seattle, Washington. Guys, we are so excited to have you all on today, and thank you so much for taking time out of your day. We're going to hopefully keep this to about an hour. There's lots and lots to cover. And we're going to share with you some ideas of what you can do to really kind of take advantage of this really emerging and exciting market that is wellness and aging in place. I do want to know before we dive in as well is whether or not you are currently installing the IQ panel in DSC Touch. This will help us kind of understand the audience that we're talking to. You've let me know whether you've attended before, so you're kind of used to us or not, or whether you're brand new, so we'll make sure we cover those things. But then also whether or not you're currently installing our products, because that will help us understand kind of how to tailor that discussion. If you've never installed our products or not familiar with them, we want to make sure that we're a little more descriptive on that, so we don't leave you in the dark. too much. So if you don't mind filling that poll out right now, real quickly. As a guest, I'll go ahead and introduce Lainie and Tom from Alarm.com are on the line today. Guys, say hello.
Hi.
Hello, everybody.
They're going to help walk us through some of the opportunity that wellness presents for us. Maybe give us some ideas of things that we can do to sell this to our potential customers. And wellness is great because it doesn't just cover an individual system, but you can actually get into some commercial and larger systems as well that can present some really great opportunities for you. So they're going to walk us through some of the things that they know about and some of the support that they can provide for us. So it looks like over 50%, well over 50%, are currently installing the IQ panel or the DSC Touch, which is great. So for those of you that have not installed the IQ panel or DSC Touch, it is a 7-inch touchscreen built on the Android operating system, has a built-in panel camera, 6 wireless radios that allow it to communicate to a variety of devices, dual path connectivity that allows it to do both cellular and Wi-Fi simultaneously. You can certainly learn more about it on our website, or talk to your Qualsys or Tyco representative in your area, and we'll give you a personal demo and make sure that you've got it. You can also look on our YouTube page for a variety of videos about our products, how to install them, how to use them, how to sell them. And there's our webinars. Our past webinars are recorded and placed on there as well in a webinar playlist. And today's webinar will be that same way. So for those of you that are listening in and maybe can't see the screens, or maybe you want to share this with a friend, or want to review it later for as a point of reference, we'll have that uploaded onto our YouTube page, which is just youtube.com/Qualsys, and we'll put that on there hopefully later on this afternoon, and then you'll get a link to it in your email tomorrow as well. So again, as we go along, I would like to have you guys type in your questions. If you've got a question that you want to ask or something you want to say, please don't hesitate to put it in there. If it's pertinent and relevant to the conversation, we'll do our best to address it and talk about it right there. So I guess, Lainie, let's go ahead and get started. You can see on the screen here, you've got this lovely lady, and there's a great little iPad here. And you're going to tell us all about what you can see, and just as a brief glimpse for you guys, when we talk about wellness or we talk about the aging in place, the concept is that the security system you would typically install is tweaked just a bit so that the people outside of the home could kind of keep an eye on them, right? Isn't that right, Lainie? Isn't that how you describe it?
Right. So it's a tool for many families. It's a caregiving tool to keep you close and also aware of changes, behavioral health, safety, security, many other use cases that we'll talk about while someone's living independently.
Yeah. So I mean, the whole goal there is to try and let people stay in their homes longer. You've got a population here which is aging. The baby boomers are all entering that point where if they're not already thinking about this stuff, perhaps they're going to be soon. And they don't necessarily want to just go to a nursing home. And many of them still feel like they're independent enough, or their children feel like they're independent enough that they could stay in their own home, but there's kind of that worry that, like, well, what if something happens? And if you've been on our webinars before, you've heard me talk about how awesome the IQ panel and Alarm.com working together is to allow you to know what's going on in your home. I myself am a father of 4 kids with 1 more on the way, and I want to know what's going on in my home if I'm not there. I want to be able to pull up my phone and see my kids on my cameras. I want to know that my front door is locked. I want to know that my windows are closed. I want to know that my temperature in my home is a comfortable temperature, or if no one is at home, that I'm saving energy. So all these things come in place even more when you've got an elderly parent or grandparent in a situation where they want to stay in their home, but there could be those dangers like falling or being able to take their medicine the right way, or what have you. That this kind of system, that when you tweak it just a little bit, you just tweak the way you install it, the way you position it, the way you approach it, it presents a great opportunity for you. And further, Alarm.com has done some really amazing work in using some of those same sensors, like motion sensors and security sensors, to give you information about what's happening inside that home all throughout the day, and give some really great reports. And you can see an example of that right there on that iPad. Before we dive into the specific sensors or the behaviors or the app or things like that, let's talk a little bit about the opportunity out there, Lainie. what is it? What opportunity is presented to dealers in our industry in terms of wellness?
Right. So, well, Jeremy, as we get started, let me just introduce who's here on this side. I'm Lainie and McLerran, and I am the Director of Wellness at Alarm.com. And joining me is Tom Rogers, who is the Senior Director of Business Development here at Alarm.com and has been in the security industry for over 30 years. So we're delighted to be here, and thank you so much, Jeremy, for hosting this. We're happy to be partnering with you, and we're excited about some of the upcoming opportunities.
Thank you.
Also, Whitney, thank you so much for your help with the deck. We appreciate it. And thank you to everyone that's joined the call. We're very excited about the newest feature enhancement that Alarm.com is announcing, which is the wellness solution. And as Jeremy had mentioned, it's exactly what you said, Jeremy. People want to stay in their own home. They want to live their life at a certain point, how they always have lived it. But what they recognize is that as you age in place, there's certain risks that come with that. And Alarm.com recognized that and realized that if 87% of people want to stay in their home longer and with less risk or vulnerability, how can we use these types of sensors to keep someone safe and make it be cost effective and also not intrusive so it doesn't invade their privacy and allows them to age in place as they want to? What we're finding is not only is the desire to age in place there, but also how do you start to consider thinking about reducing some of the home expenses as well as the home health care expenses? So not only are people wanting to stay at home, they're living longer with less savings, which presents, some challenges. So largely, what Alarm.com, started to think about is wellness really is just another one of the feature enhancements of the full Alarm.com ecosystem. So if you think about it and think about how do we make our homes smart enough that if someone did want to age in place, that we could use the same platform, a single platform through Alarm.com to make that experience safer, more efficient, also non-invasive, cost-effective. And really, wellness is just like any of the other feature sets that Alarm.com has incorporated. It started as interactive security, looked at home automation, energy management, and video monitoring. So wellness is just another extension of the ecosystem.
Now let me ask you, Lainie. I totally agree with that. I would see that there's really almost no reason why someone who is an existing Alarm.com account customer, maybe an existing customer for one of these dealers, that suddenly realizes that, hey, I'm getting to the point where I need maybe a help I've fallen and I can't get up type button. There's no reason they have to go out and shop for a completely different system. The system they have today could literally be enhanced to add wellness to it, correct?
Definitely. And Tom wanted to talk a little bit about that. Tom here, his mom was one of the first wellness customers, actually.
Yeah, thanks. It's nice to meet everybody. Yeah, one of the things, just go over a little bit about the security industry and the help I can't get up button. As soon as I hear that, I perk up. But security dealers have been installing those buttons, essentially the same thing as the typical PER system has been in the industry for 30 or 40 years. Every security dealer occasionally puts one in. What really differentiates wellness from just a button, and Lainie will get into it later, a button that somebody probably won't even have with them when they fall, is that wellness, through the use of the existing equipment available on the security panel, really provides a safety net for the person aging in place and just not a button. So as Lainie will get into, protecting against nighttime falls, wandering, forgetting medication. So one of the benefits is, yes, the dealers have always had the ability, and I was a dealer for a long time, of having that so-called help I can't get up button, which are almost completely useless. I think 80% of the time they're useless. So as you get into the great features that wellness has, the really cool thing about it that I get excited about is that it runs off a platform that is already in every home that has these panels installed, and we have a couple pieces of additional equipment, but the real power in wellness isn't really that help I can't get up button, because that's 40, 50 years old. It's all the great features that we can do by knowing what somebody is doing and what they're not doing, or what they should do and they didn't do when they were expected to. So I'll just turn it back over to Lainie and
well, let me jump in there. So I'm looking right here at the slide you guys are showing, and I'm looking at, this is obviously the picture at the home, and it's on the wellness tab. So if you've gone into your dealer account and you've enabled wellness on a particular account, then you're going to start seeing the sensors reporting information. And you can see, if you're on the phone and you're looking at this right now, you can see the door to the garage. Looks like that was opened up maybe around 10 o'clock. Again, at a little after noon, and probably around 4 o'clock. The bedroom hallway motion sensor was detecting motion around that same time. You can see that, obviously the person was, walking back and forth, moving around inside the home. The den motion sensor had some time there. You can see the bed sensor, which is a weight-based sensor. They were basically laying in bed until, 8, 10 o'clock, whenever that was. There was a couple moments there where maybe they got up or shifted or moved or something like that. You can see those little marks in there. The den recliner, that looks like they basically got it. I mean, if I'm looking at this and this is my grandma or my mother, I would be able to say, oh, looks like she was in bed until about 8. She got up, went to the garage for something, went through the bedroom hallway into the den, sat down in the den for a little while, then got up and went back through the hallway in the den again, and then sat, and she spent a lot of time just sitting in the den. And then she got up and went somewhere else again and did something else. And then she spent a lot more time just sitting in the den. And again, got up and then spent some more time sitting. And I can kind of see what's happening in her home as a nice little snapshot. And maybe based on this, I could say, call her up and say, hey, Mom, you can't spend all day just sitting in your chair. You got to get up and walk around a little bit more. You literally spent 4 hours watching back-to-back The Price is Right. It's time for you to get up and move around. If you really want to be aging in place and you don't want to be going to that nursing home, you and I both need to work together to make sure you're staying active. Maybe it's time to do, for a walk. Maybe let's call a friend and have them come over and visit, things like that. Maybe go out and do some gardening, whatever it is. But I can see how much time she's spending in that chair as opposed to, or in bed, as opposed to right now where I might not see anything if this system wasn't in place.
Right, and those are great points, Jeremy. Just a couple things about that screenshot and what you described there, which was an excellent sort of interpretation of what it's for. One of the things that you'll find when you install a wellness system, and I've heard it almost for every installation, and I experienced it myself, is what you think is going on in the home probably isn't. It's probably a little bit differently. Like my mom had a sleeping disorder for about a year before she told me. I could just tell she was up. And one of the things they can do, and Jeremy, you pointed this out, is also tell you if there's a lack of socialization. So if the front doors are never opening and they're just sort of sitting around the house and they're not interacting with people. And the one thing I will caution about is that this really isn't meant to be a forensic analysis of exactly where somebody is in the house at that given point in time. That's happened a couple times, and it's really meant to look at to see is somebody in bed, or are they not in bed, are they moving around. And particularly when you're using wireless sensors that have a reset, and you have people that may go in rooms that don't have a sensor, that it's really meant to give you a picture of what's going on in the house, but not like sit at the screen to figure out, well, did grandma go to the bathroom this very second? But it does give you a nice insight as far as there is activity or a lack of activity. But one of the things you'll find that when you install this, that some users will come back and say, well, these sensors can't be right because my mom goes to bed every night at 11 and she gets up at 7 and she's always asleep. And as you know, the sensors don't lie. They really always tell the truth. So
yep.
Just a word of caution.
Yeah, it's something to keep in mind. And obviously, the more sensors you have in a home, the more information you're going to have, right? The more motion sensors.
Right.
If you've got a motion sensor in every room, you're going to get more data about all those different rooms. Right now we're only seeing 2 different, spaces, bedroom, hallway, and den. If there was one in other rooms, it might give us a lot more, a bigger, wider picture.
Right, and Jeremy, one of the things, that to think about is, you had brought up the buttons, and, here's the reality. Most people know about a panic pendant. It's where technology has sort of stopped in this space. And so wellness was really built on the idea that you might as well meet people where they are and then give them an enhanced experience. So we include and we integrate with panic pendants because we realize here's the reality of a panic pendant. 80% of the time they're not being pushed or worn at time of need. So you've got a 20% solution.
Yep.
What else can we do to build beyond that? And what we've come to learn, and I've been with wellness for a little bit over 5 years now, is really looking at non-urgent alerting, so activity events and critical event alerts, to be able to be proactive and preventative about care, and also, looking at what is the baseline routine that exists in the home, not based on what you're being told, but really how someone lives within their space, and how do you use wellness in a way that lets us know when something out of the ordinary happens. And typically, just like you described in the description of the screen that I was just on, is, what that screen says to me is that's a fairly sedentary lifestyle. And that's something, it'd be great to have more social engagement. But the reality is people at that age and that stage of life are pretty routinized. So if something drastic changed in their behavior, how do we let someone know about it? So at the end of the day, there's a pretty high level value proposition of what wellness is. And it really is a couple of things. It's maintaining your independence. So for the older adult, it's living life on their own terms. For someone like me who's an adult child, who's caring for children and aging parents, for me it's connectedness. It's peace of mind. It's a way, I don't sit behind screens, and my mom's 74, travels the world, but lives alone. And she's never going to wear a panic pendant because she doesn't need to. She doesn't have risk or vulnerability. Mm-hmm. But the reality is that if she tripped or fell, my sister who lives in Houston, I'm in Washington, D.C., we would have no idea. Yeah. So the key things I use the system for is she up each morning? Is she safe inside at night? And if anything out of the ordinary happened, could my sister and I know about it?
Yeah.
And that's really when you start to think about wellness as more than an emergency button. It really is providing, depending on how you live within your space, what are your chronic conditions? Is this a safe at home solution? Is it an accident could happen anywhere? Or is it long-term chronic disease and infection? Depending on what your situation is, wellness can support you because it's going to provide wellness assessment and assistance. It will have a monitored system will still have the functionality of a panic pendant. Being able to be connected.
We've got some questions here from the group that I'd like to pose out. So Pete wants to know if the app at some point in the future will have access to like a panic feature for medical, police, or fire. To my knowledge, there's no plans on doing that in the app. Is that right?
We are currently discussing that and reviewing it. We looked at different platforms, so we're sort of noodling through the best way to do that. But we are having some discussions.
Mm-hmm. Right. All right. Ryan wants to know, how are people integrating weight-based sensors? Is it simple NC wired sensors that's wired to a wireless door window contact, or is it something different?
Well, so there's something that we need to sort of talk about, and what is wellness and what is the real functionality. I think what he's asking about is biometric data and telehealth solutions. We are not that. We really are using sensors, a selection of sensors, to look at occupancy, presence, motion, exits and entries. We're also looking at video, image sensing, different things like that. And we're going to dive in deep into the different sensors. But the reality, and to sort of talk a little bit about how we're pushing to that point of mobile applications and different, sensor suites and sets, is people's expectations, both older adult and adult children's expectations of a panic pendant are changing. Mm-hmm. A simple, I've fallen and can't get up, is not going to do the trick anymore, largely because of the success rate, but more importantly, dementia, Alzheimer's, cognitive decline, any kind of cognitive, decline. You can't put the onus on the individual to ask for help. Mm-hmm. So what do you do in order to start thinking about how do you use a smart home solution or platform to be able to get help when it's most needed? So being able to look at non-urgent and urgent alerting. Panic pendants can't tell you, has your mom accessed the refrigerator 3 times today? Mm-hmm. It also can't tell you that she has had a spike in bathroom frequency and could be in trouble. So being able to look at a solution, a single solution, that can start to think about smart home, security, fire, non-urgent, proactive, preventative activity alerts. And really, we're starting to hear more about fall detection and mobile PERS, so being able to have functionality outside of your home. So that's really where...
And I'm 100% a fan of this. I mean, again, I'm the guy who puts door sensors on my kids' bedroom doors so that if they open up the door in the middle of the night and try and leave their room, I know about it. You know, I like having sensors everywhere just because I want to know, and I can choose based on my, customizing my notifications, how much information I really want to be notified of, as opposed to what information I'm going to go get on demand through my app or through my alarm.com portal. David brings up a good point, though. How are people overcoming? How are other dealers overcoming, or how have you guys suggested overcoming that pushback of elderly not wanting the big brother to be tracked? I mean, this is a lot of information that normally wouldn't be gathered or seen about this person. You know, are they resistant to this, or is the benefit of having this information presented to their child or their caregiver outweighing that concern for security or safety or privacy?
Yeah, great question. And I think from a personal experience, and to be honest with you, anybody tells my mom I'll be in big trouble, so please don't. But the original wellness system was installed as under the sort of the undercover of a security system. So, I think if you look at some installations, there's going to be, like my mom's one, there's no way in the world I'm getting a bed sensor on that system. The whole thing would be in the trash can. Mm-hmm. But I think if you look at it, where all the really cool things we're doing with wellness are really being done through the security sensors. So it's not anything that they really need to know about or be concerned about. Now, Lainie's going to talk about one of our great long-term customers up in Pennsylvania, Bob Bach, who really appreciated it, because I think at a certain time people understand that, if they want to age in place and they just need monitoring, they're going to be okay with those sensors. But I think particularly because, you can install a really cool, great wellness system is what you talked about, Jeremy, was you put sensors on the doors, you put motion detectors in every room, including the bathroom, so it's not intrusive. You put sensors on the refrigerator and freezer, and maybe the medicine cabinet, or pills are taken. And it's very non-intrusive. They don't even know it's there. They think it's a security system, and that can give you so much data and peace of mind. And I can't foresee, much pushback, because it's really being used as a security system. So with that, so my mother never knew that it was a wellness system. She thought it was a really cool alarm system that she got for free. So I'll turn it over to Lainie to talk about
we're getting a lot of questions about the bed sensors. A lot of people want to know how those work, where they might get them, things like that. I mean, there's a lot of questions coming in about those right now.
Yeah. So I wanted to spend a minute on some of the equipment. And as we're talking about this, I'm going to talk a little bit, Jeremy, and address the issue of privacy. Because over the course of the last 5 years, I think people's idea of what these systems are and the whole sort of wearable market has changed the way people think about sensor solutions. To think about that a little bit, a lot of times it's the adult children who are purchasing these systems. They live their life app-based, and so for them, this is an extension of how they live their life. It's about their peace of mind. It's about maintaining their mother's privacy and independence. So it's interesting what people, in order for them to have their own life, something like this is a tool that can keep them close and connected without invading their privacy. We do find that people are now much more open to video. Early on, we did not see that as much, but being able to have visual verification or any kind of check-in through an image sensor or a video option has become a real part of some people's solution. The great thing is you really can have this. The system has a ton of flexibility, and you can really meet your parents or your loved ones on their own terms. Most every system that I put in, with the exception of Tom's mother, uses a bed sensor. And that is a proprietary sensor to alarm.com right now. That and the emergency or stationary bedside button. Those are both two sensors proprietary to alarm.com. The bed sensor is somewhat critical at a certain age around nighttime safety, because there's so much around sleep that drives wellness and behavioral health and well-being. And it's largely, what is their sleep pattern? Are they flip-flopping days and nights? Do they sleep at night? Long periods of sleeplessness, early on, we found this with one of our hospital partners, really can lead to dementia-like, attributes. And how do we best support that? Nighttime falls, that's a huge one. So the bed sensor is great in the sense that it can really make sense of all of the activity around sleep. The emergency button is another piece that's been great because it doesn't have to be on body. The stigma of wearing a purse or not wearing one, and not having the safety of one, this allows you to have something in your home that can get you the same kind of help if necessary or assistance. We also have plenty of people who use this as a direct link to a family care provider. So you could push that button to alert a family member. There are people that will never want, 911 to show up at their house. This is a great opportunity for someone because now they don't have to remember phone numbers at time of need. They can push the button and know that they can get help, and it doesn't have to be on their body. A lot of people put these on bedside tables. They put them in between the shower and the commode because most people are not wearing a pendant at that time. We also then use motion sensors to look at, is someone up and about moving through their day? Are they accessing the kitchen? How much time are they spending in their recliner? Are they coming and going? Are they driving at night? Are they taking, their medicine 3 times a day? And also things like water detection. Are we seeing sinks left on, bathtubs, overflowing? Are we seeing floods and leaks, thermostat, energy management? So we really are depending on the individual. You can have a very simple, complete, and comprehensive solution with just a few sensors that would give you a safety net in your home, or you can really, expand that depending on their comfort level.
Well, and Tom, you brought it up that it's, your mother thought she was getting a really cool security system, which is precisely what this is. This is a really
and that's what she said, and that's what she did have.
Yeah. And she does. She has a really cool security system that also happens to give us some wellness data and also happens to be lifestyle information. I mean, that same door sensor that tells you whether or not the door is open can also tell the thermostat, hey, the door is open. Don't waste the energy out the door. So make sure you turn the thermostat down when the door is left open. Things like that. So there's really that. It's almost 3 systems built into one that gives you, the child or the caregiver, information you need to help make sure that they maintain their lifestyle, gives the person inside the home access to be able to, turn up and down their their lights, access their locks, you make sure that their home is secure, things like that. And of course the security system, which is going to keep them safe, whether they're in the home at night or outside of the home.
Guys, we have 2 questions real fast. Sorry to chime in. This is Whitney.
Please go.
The first question, can the bed sensor monitor the quality of their sleep? And the second one is, how does the system tell you if they've taken their medicine?
Right, so great questions. First of all, as you saw in the first screen where you saw the breaks in the blue bed sensor, if you see my screen right now, you'll see the blue bar next to the bed sensor where you're visualizing the sensor activity. If it were a restless night's sleep, you would see breaks in the blue, but no activity anywhere else, which means they did not get out of bed, but they are flip-flopping throughout the night on their bed sensor. So that's looking at sleep quality. As far as the other question, I'm trying to think, what was the second question? I think it was about...
how does the system tell you if they've taken the medicine?
Okay. Right.
So typically with the medicine, what we'll do is we will be able to tell you the likelihood that a pill event has taken place. So, what we'll do is, depending on how an individual takes their medicine, do they keep it in a cabinet, a caddy, on a, kitchen counter? You want to meet the individual on their own terms, because what you don't want to do is break down their compliance or their routine. So typically we'll use a door sensor, a motion sensor. Some people will do video, where they can then say, okay, my mom's supposed to take her pills 3 times a day. She's accessed that area at the right time when she should. Now, that will only tell you the likelihood that there's a pill that's been taken, because we can't see if it's on the floor or, depending on the situation.
Yeah, she could just be brushing her teeth 3 times a day, but at least lets you know, hey, she opened up that cabinet at that moment, right?
Yeah, well, one of the things that the technology and wellness is really the first time it's really being promoted as far as what it can do. Is what we can do is we can tell you if something happened, and then when something didn't happen, what it was supposed to happen, or if something happened and there was a follow-up. So if you think about the medicine cabinet, let's keep it simple. Like my mom. My mom takes her medicine around 7 a.m. every day. So I set up a rule, and I have a motion detector that she keeps her medicine on the cabinet, like at a certain corner where the refrigerator is, or you could use a door sensor. But she has a motion detector just pointed right where the medicine is, so it picks up her hand. So I have a very simple rule that if that motion detector does not see an activation between 6 a.m. and 8 a.m., let me know. It's not going to generate a EMT response. It's not going to cause any issues. But what we can do for people is let them know if you think something should happen and it doesn't, we'll let you know. That's the same thing the bed sensor does. So one of the cool things we can do with the bed sensor or a chair sensor, but we'll focus on the bed right now, is detect the possibility of nighttime falls. So about 75% of all falls happen at night, and the typical scenario is grandma gets out of bed to get a glass of water at 2 in the morning. She's not going to put her pendant on because, one, she probably doesn't wear it anyhow, but she sure isn't going to put it on just to go to the bathroom and get a glass of water. And she falls, and she's there for a day and a half. So with the bed sensor, you can set up a simple rule: is you know about what time she goes to bed and what time she gets up, and you put a little fudge factor in. So you set up a rule that says between 11 p.m. and 6 a.m., if that bed becomes vacant before, let's say, for more than 30 minutes, let me know. Which means she got up out of bed, which is unusual, and then she never came back. Now that could be anywhere from 1 minute to, I think we can set up to 3 or 4 hours. But that is a good way the technology is letting you know for medication alerts and possible falls about something didn't happen. So in this event, the bed became vacated at 2 a.m. and at 2:30 she still wasn't there, so it's going to call me to tell me she's not come back to bed.
Yeah.
Right. And Jeremy, the great thing about the system, is the screen that I have up right now, and it really plays to Tom's point, is beyond just the actual sensor activity that is real time. This dashboard right here to me is the one that gives you the greatest insight on what is your baseline routine. Because what this does is this takes your sensors and it starts to compare the most recent day compared to all days. And
so this isn't comparing you against the rest of the population. This is comparing you against your own patterns. Is that right?
Right. Yes. This is giving you your routine. So it's truly based on how you live within your space over a period of time. And it classifies it into red, yellow, and green, which means either something's very unusual and urgent, something is wrong there. Something that's notable, something that continues to fall in yellow is typically decline. It's something where you're starting to see a behavior or a change in your routine. And then green is something that's on routine, normal, to be expected. And what you'll see here is sleep drives a lot of this. Restroom visits, activity level. This is where typically our home care partners, hospital partners, senior living communities, this is where they have the conversation with the family and say, here's sort of where we are today. Here are the recommended alerts and schedules, just like Tom said, to reduce the likelihood that someone could lay on the floor for 8 hours. Most everyone you talk to has this fear of, having some sort of risk or vulnerability in the house and no one knowing for an extended period of time. What people don't tell you is that leads to dehydration, hospitalizations, loss of living independently. They're usually a lot bigger. So the system is smart enough to tell you what are the recommended alerts based on how you live.
Well, we've got some great questions about that too. So I can see up in the top corner there, you've got new notification there, and I assume you can create a notification about things like that. The user themselves, be it the kid or the caregiver or whoever, they could create those notifications based on almost anything, right? They could say, hey, if total sleep time is above average, send me a text message, or, send me an email, or things like that. The user could set those up and customize exactly what they want to see and what they don't want to see, right?
Well, typically what they would do, the key wellness notifications are There's really, and if you look at my screen, you can see them now. It's up and about, and that's looking at motion throughout your home and how you live within your space. Away from bed and still in bed. Safe inside is looking at exits and entries, missed medication alerts. But also when you think about missed medication, you could also look at, is the refrigerator being accessed? Is someone climbing stairs? Different things like that. And then you assign what's that limitation, what's the time frame that starts to make you wonder, is there risk?
Can the dealer set those up as well for that, at the time of install? Could these guys go and set those notifications up for their customers?
Yes, they could. They would really need the customer's input, and we recommend, and I recommend just from personally setting up these systems, that, except for the specific ones, exactly what you want, but particularly away from bed and other ones where you have to really understand what's going on in the house first before you start getting blanketed with notifications. One point back to yours on Jeremy on the notifications you receive. The notification setup is really is event driven, where something happened or didn't happen. The reports, like my let me know if my mom's activity level is up or down, that comes in a daily report, so you can log on. That'll soon be available to the dealer. So right now you log on and you can look at the screen. Fairly soon you'll be able to opt into an email that you'll get every morning that says, here's your daily report and the activity level is up or down. Okay. Which I think is really cool.
Now we got a lot of questions. I know we're starting to run short on time. We got a lot of questions about pricing, as well as how to find some of these customers. Do you offer it to your existing residential customers and do some lead generation through them, or do you go out and find new ones? What's the right way to do this? So let's make sure we get those covered as well.
Yeah. So let's look at this slide for a second here, Jeremy, and really think about what is the opportunity. And I know you and I have talked about this and really sort of explored the different pockets. And we want to work with you on this, as this is new for a lot of dealers. For those that have used PERS products, we want to start to think about what is the opportunity beyond a PERS. So how do you upsell existing PERS customers? And I was just at the PERS Summit this year, and really the message was, if you don't have a caregiving dashboard, real-time alerts around non-urgent activities, you need to start thinking about that as a PERS provider. So we want to say, what is it? What is the wellness solution? Is it a cellular application of PERS? Is it, fall detection? What is it exactly that you're looking for? And really start to think about, if you just added a bed sensor, how much more success would you have in that home? We also want to speak to two different sort of existing or potential customers. One is the older adult themselves that knows that they have risk, may not be willing to admit it openly, but knows they want their independence at any cost. So they would use our system. Or the sandwich generation children, the adult child, who is saying to their parents, I got to maintain my life, I work, I have my children, and I want to stay close to you. This is a solution for everyone. Someone who's got remote caregivers spread across the country, this is a way to keep everybody on the same page. And then largely what we want to spend a little bit of time talking about is high volume healthcare channels. And this is where we would want to work with you as dealers to really start to think about who are the people in your market that are working with aging adults in high volume. So it's typically senior living communities, independent living, assisted living. You're also seeing continuing care retirement communities, home care companies, social service organizations. How do we work with you, and how do you start to think about wellness, not necessarily in a home-based setting, but when you start to think about how do you look at population health? How do you use the wellness application? And this is the thing that I'm very excited and I'm partnering with Qualsys about, is we've created not only a home-based starter kit, but also how do you start to think about communities and how do you support them? And what is really the value proposition when you sort of leave the home-based family experience and move into a community living campus-based solution? And really wellness right now, at that point, the dashboard or the screens that you saw before, the user interface, moves from a family loved one, now really looking at how does staff use that to redefine a senior living experience. What are the interactions between the staff, the residents, family caregivers, professional caregivers, in a way that you start to look at staffing efficiencies, profitability, occupancy rates, retention rates, as well as demand-driven care models. And the example would be, if you've got 200 rooms in a community, in an independent living community, and you provide some sort of oversight or concierge services where you would do a nighttime check, instead of checking every room in the community, maybe you'd want to check the rooms where people are out of bed. Mm-hmm. So it's starting to look at groups of people in order to really drive cash flow, increase the resident retention, just as I mentioned. People are expecting communities to be smart now. So it's a differentiated living experience while ultimately reducing the operational costs. And so in thinking about that, and I'm sure we'll have questions, and I do want to touch on this, and we will answer them at the end, is thinking about the architecture in a community setting and thinking about, okay, there's independent living where people really could be living in apartments, rooms, even individual homes on a campus. Then there's assisted living. Typically these systems are being used and the user interface is staff-facing. And then there's common areas. And how do we address those? And really looking at, everything from the bed sensor, for nighttime safety, fall risk, exits and entries, motion, are they up and about, moving throughout their day, but also starting to look at trouble conditions. Could there be a potential water leak? Are there weather alerts? What about temperature settings? Mm-hmm. And how do we start to think about that so it's a platform for everybody that connects everyone together?
Well, absolutely. And when you get those, the dealers that are on the line today and others that are out there in the world who are, looking to offer something like this, as they go and they approach one of those, one of those caregiving organizations, they can say, hey, look, in each of your individual apartments or homes or condos or whatever you want to call them, each person should have a panel and they should have a motion sensor and a door sensor on each of the doors. And this is the information you'll now know, and look, you can show them the information they'll know about that person, bed sensors and chair sensors, etc. And then you can go in and say, in your, common areas, this is the kind of information, have a camera in there so you can see who's moving around and, who's doing these sort of things. And it kind of, paint that picture for them, to really help them understand what information they're going to get, what information they'll have access to when they install a system like this. And then, of course, talk about the extra benefits, too, of the lifestyle type things, the energy savings, the life safety, items, things like that. So it can be really, really effective. But it's going to be a challenge that we wouldn't expect you guys to go in blind either. And that's where Lainie, as well as Jay Davis and the rest of our sales team here at Qualsys, Tom, I'm sure would be willing to help as well. That if you get one of these that you're saying, hey, I've got a big organization, they've got, X number of units, and I want to try and close them and put a system in each of their homes and have a space for the common area, that's when we'd want you guys to bring us into it and say, let me have these people explain it to you and show you and things like that. And we can work together with you and your customer to try and really help sell that person and close that person for you to create some great business for you.
Yeah, because I think it's just like you said, Jeremy, it changes, it's a volume model. It's really looking at groups of people, group notifications, and it's outfitting rooms rather than individual people. Mm-hmm. So it does, it is a little bit different. It is setting up notifications that can be universally used across the community. So panels not communicating, system actions to watch, nighttime safety, and it's starting to look at an entire campus by room rather than individual, and then figuring out how do you best support that person in an efficient way. And so, here's an example of enterprise energy where you're seeing trouble conditions based on unit, and also then a history, where you can look room by room and be able to have one person on staff that is able to access this kind of information and respond.
That's really cool. I mean, I could just imagine the night nurse being able to sit back and just look at all this, really information. Some real quick questions I want to cover before we dive into this next little piece, and we're running really low on time. So In large senior care facilities, Kevin says, the construction of buildings may greatly inhibit cellular communication. Is the wellness product available through IP or hardwired connection to the IQ panel? The IQ panel has dual path connectivity in it. So as long as those large organizations have a Wi-Fi connection in addition to the cellular, there shouldn't be any issue at all, because it will use both cellular and Wi-Fi to communicate. So you should have more than enough speed and signal for all of that. The other question was asked by Kyle: is there a way to tie in your home system with a family member's wellness system, so you could see both systems at a glance? And this is where I would personally recommend multi-system access. If you're on the alarm.com portal, you can go up to, I think it's the mobile tab, and then you would add a system to it. And when you add the system, you just type in the username and log in for that system, and it will appear both on your mobile phone as well as on your alarm.com page. When you're logged in on the computer, you just click the top right, click on your name, and change it to the other system. And you'll be able to look at, view, and control that system the same as if it were your own and you were there. So two very easy.
Yeah, Jeremy. Yeah, it's very easy. I do it all the time. So I flip between my two systems and my mother's seamlessly. So
and I do as well. I use that for my office as well as my home, as well as the condo that we rent out. That was our first home that we're now renting out. So, I've got multi-system access on all three of those, and it's very easy to switch back and forth.
And just to touch on that for 1 second, Jeremy, the community, the senior living community platform is largely a commercial platform that looks at multi-dwelling units. So if you can think about it singularly, you've got your consumer, end user, then you've got your multi-system access where you would tie systems together and toggle between the two, and then you would go into an enterprise solution where you could look at commercial properties and campus-based solutions. And so I think, what we wanted to do now is really dive into what is the Alarm.com and Qualys Wellness Program. Jeremy, is this the right time for that?
Yeah, go ahead. As you do this, there was one clarifying question here. Kenneth is asking, the Qualys system can only offer, only hold up to 65 devices in one panel. How would you handle a 200-room unit? To be clear, you would want to do a panel for each of those rooms. Now that we have heard of, and Lainie, you and I were discussing this last week, we have heard of some dealers who will do a single panel for a group of 20 rooms or something like that to try and do that. But then there's not that individual interface that each resident would have. And again, work with us as you are looking at that multi-dwelling unit, as you're looking at that community. We'll try and find the best solution for you. But our personal stance is that, especially in the situations where they want to be living at home, they're aging in place, maybe it is a managed community of some sort, but they've got their own condo, they've got their own, home and things like that. They're going to want the panel on their own so they can have their own system, so they can have their own security, so they can have their own control over lights, locks, thermostats, etc. It's really important that they maintain that. So
that's a great point, Jeremy. In some cases, we have done that, where we've installed a panel and you're just doing rooms. Where what you lose is that individualization for that particular, if it's a caregiver or son or daughter. One of the things that we recently did, I want to highlight that wellness is also not just for aging in place, and that we've had some dealers deploy. I was involved, and Lainie and I were involved personally with this school. If people want to look it up, it's called the Phase-On School for Autism down in Richmond. So our first wellness dealer deployed that system, where essentially they built a condominium with apartments to really work with 30% of people with autism can live on their own, but they do need some technology help as far as making sure they're okay. So what these apartments are for is to work with the students that have recently graduated before they go off on their own, to give them a place to live on their own, to make sure that they're safe. And so I think there's 35 apartments in total, and of which there are some that are real residents. They rent them out to the public, and then they have security that lives there. And they have a wellness system in each one of the apartments, so the parents can have individual look-ins. So I think where you're right, where you lose, if we installed one panel there with 35 sensors, you wouldn't have the individual feel for it. But the other thing I want to point out is that wellness in some applications is more than just the aging in place solution. It is the solution for some other life events.
Yep. And to be clear, the IQ panel is really a residential solution panel. So as you're looking at, some of these larger units, where you do things in, multiple things, the goal is not to have a single panel that controls every single unit and all the things. You're almost installing, small residential systems in each of these rooms. Now, could you work the system around so it does something different? Yes, you certainly can. But it was always designed to be a residential panel. It's not designed to be a commercial style panel. So.
Yeah, and although these are installed in commercial establishments, they're not really commercial settings. They're we're not putting fire sensors on them and that type of thing. So, but they're really being used for a residential application.
Yeah.
Right, and so that sort of leads into what we had created, and this is something Jeremy and Tom and I worked on, and Whitney as well, to really start to think about what kind of in-home safety solution would make sense. And with that, what we created was the home-based starter kit with Qualsys, and it is built off of the IQ panel and really looks at what would you need in a home in order to keep you safe, connected, without risk, being able to utilize, real-time alerts. And what we came up with is most homes have two doors. So let's look at the front door and the back door. Let's put a panel in, and let's put a bed sensor in and start to look at, nighttime safety. Let's also provide a stationary button so that we can have the same emergency response that you would get from a wearable. And then we also said let's include a pendant. A thermostat, and be able to start doing temperature sensing and alerts around that. And then the Alarm.com mobile app. And that we felt really would give you a comprehensive solution. Now, obviously, you can add on video or image or water sensors, but we felt that this combination would be a key starter kit for almost any home. And so with that, what we realized is that by having a base starter kit with Qualsys, we would be able to start to talk to customers about here's sort of what we think is the feature set to keep you safe at home, 24/7 complete solution, and then from there build or add on. But this would be able to allow you to have those key notifications we mentioned, the up and about, the safe inside, the away from bed. You could also start to look at medication if you wanted, and then thermostat. Being able to benefit from that, that's a great starting point to really keep someone safe at home and extend their life at home.
So here's a great question. George is asking, if I'm going to offer this package to my customer, what price would you recommend this being for them? What would I charge them? And George, my answer to that would be, it really kind of depends on the model you employ. Do you want to employ a model where they pay for everything up front and then have a lower monthly rate? Or do you want to employ a model where they're financing the equipment, for lack of a better term, where they, are just paying a slightly higher monthly rate, but you have covered all the cost of the equipment in with that, and then they would, basically be paying for that over time, over the course of their contract or what have you. I don't see a reason why this potentially wouldn't basically go along the same pricing model that you have today for your security systems. And if you find that the market, is a little bit resistant to that because maybe the demographic is such that they're on fixed incomes or, they're wanting something lower, that maybe you get a little creative. Maybe you say, okay, well, I'm going to do a little bit more down and a little less per month. Or maybe you extend that contract to be a little bit longer or something like that. I mean, chances are when they have a system like this, they're going to be having it for a longer period of time anyway. It's not one of those things where I'm going to have security for a while, and once my contract is up, I'll reevaluate whether I feel security is still necessary. This is one of those things that's going to be adding a lot of value to them, and I don't see any reason why they wouldn't have this, for the foreseeable future. So maybe a longer contract might be acceptable in a situation like this, but it's really almost up to you to determine with your customer what the best pricing model would be. And as you do that, we, of course, here at Qualsys and Alarm.com, the Alarm.com team as well, is more than happy to help you work through those details and figure out what's the best situation for you and your customers.
One thing I wanted to add and talk about the attrition in the model, and we've deployed this to hundreds of dealers in a couple different countries, is that, and this is really just an opinion, and being in the industry as a security dealer, and then also working for Alarm.com and working with dealers, the average customer is with somebody about 10 years. That's sort of what the industry has been forever. And in the PERS industry, the true button help I can't get up industry, the attrition rate was sitting for a long time around about 20 months. That has changed a great deal, and I think it's much higher. But if you look at wellness, and if you expect to put wellness in it at age 65 or 70, hopefully, a woman who's 65 years old today is expected, I think, to live to 91, of which I would think at least the last, at a certain point she may need assisted living, but we've got wellness systems installed at 90-year-olds still. So if you look at that, where if it is deployed at the age of 65, 70, once that technology is installed and the family has that peace of mind, Jeremy, you're exactly right. That's not leaving. It's not an optional security system. That's really needed for them to be there. So I think if you look at it long term, as we evolve, when the market expands away from this PERS that doesn't work into a wellness platform that Lainie's deploying that really helps people, I think we expect to see attrition on that to probably be longer than a typical security system, depending on when it's deployed. If you're putting it in with somebody on their 90th birthday, that's much different than at 65 or 70.
Right.
So here's another great question. Sorry, Lainie, I got another question from Kenneth. He's asking, what's the price of this wellness starter kit? Well, because of the fact that this wellness kit is really a suggestion for us, we don't have a price set for it, because some of these items, like the IQ panel, the IQ Motion, the Mini, those are all coming from Qualsys, whereas the thermostat, the bedside button, and the bedside sensor are coming from, the bed sensor are coming from alarm.com. So there's not a set package, because you're not buying this all at one piece. However, that being said, because the majority of people on this call are going to be purchasing equipment like this through distribution, it's possible your distributor might put something together in a kit for you. And maybe this kit, isn't something you want to do, but we are working on some incentives here. For example, this community program that Lainie's put together basically said, hey, for every 25 of these kits that you're going to buy, you would get your choice of, either the room sensors or the common area add-on kit. So we're trying to, play around with some different things, some different incentives to make this a little bit more affordable, to encourage you to do some more things in volume. And if you've got feedback on, what would work for you, or what would benefit your customers, we of course want to hear it. This is what we've come up with as we've discussed it, and as we've looked at what the majority of these systems are including and what would be needed in order to provide the base amount of information, in a variety of ways, both motion in the home, time spent in bed, etc. But it doesn't mean that this would necessarily fit every single scenario. So we don't want you to feel locked into something. We want you to be able to have some flexibility in there. The other thing I would mention too, you guys probably already know about it, but our security kit, there's a special on the security kit, which includes 4-door window sensors, the motion sensor, the doorbell sensor, and the panel. And we're having a great special on that through distribution. So that's going through ISC, or the end of April. So I guess after ISC as well. But there's some great opportunities for you to get some really good pricing on this equipment. And even, I believe, and Lainie, correct me if I'm wrong, but the bed sensor, the thermostat, the bedside button can all be purchased through the alarm.com dealer portal as well, right?
Right, just the bed sensor and the button are through the dealer site right now. And just to designate that they're with the Qualsys panel, what we want to do here, and I think this is important, Jeremy, to think about, is what we found in the market is that people, depending on how you want to structure the pricing model, and we can work with you on this, is that some people are willing to pay an installation cost but don't want to pay as much around hardware risk, but don't mind a high monthly. Because if you start to think about the cost of care, typically in-home care ranges anywhere from $19 to $22 an hour. And so to have a nighttime safety solution that they pay roughly $50 for a month is the equivalent of 3 hours of care. So for many people, this is a way to extend their life at home in an affordable manner. The community wellness program that's on the slide now, the reason that we picked these pieces, Jeremy and I, was to say, okay, when you're in a campus-based solution, typically you just have one door in a room or in an apartment-type setting. You would still need a thermostat. You would need a bed sensor, and a bedside button would make sense. So we had shrunk the size of the package but also factored in that when you start to think about common areas in campuses, this is really where you see the community stepping up and really starting to outfit their community and starting to think about, we want video in common rooms. We want automated lights. We want thermostats. We want locks. We want perimeter guarding. So this is the community add-on feature that we were talking about once you get to volume and commitments in a community of around 25, is starting to think about not only the individual rooms, but also the campus and common area rooms. And so that really is a combination with two different offerings.
There's so much we could talk about, and unfortunately we are really out of time. So, let's cover real quick. If you guys have questions about, how to get in touch with the wellness team, there's wellnesssales@alarm.com that you can send an email to. We can then work through, your customers with you, answer additional questions. Those of you that would like to stay on the line and ask additional questions through the portal, we'll continue to answer those by typing in the information for you. There's still so many questions about pricing or how to position or things like that. I really appreciate all these questions and interactions, and I apologize that we weren't able to get to every single thing out here.
Jeremy, could I add one thing?
Please do.
Great. You talk about pricing really quick and how the pricing go to market with this. I think it might be helpful, and I don't know how we can get it to you, but you can look it up. Last year, we were invited to go testify at the U.S. Senate at the Committee for Aging. So if you go to the United States Senate Committee on Aging and look at last May, I think it was, we had our first wellness customer testify to the Senate. And the reason I'm bringing this up as far as pricing, what this customer did, and he looked at the PERS industry, and he was wealthy enough that he could try every technology out there, and wellness was the only one that worked for him. But what his testimony was that he was able to utilize the technology with the sensors and save himself over a 2.5-year period over $200,000 in healthcare costs because he didn't have to put his stepmother in assisted living. And without the technology, that would have not happened. He definitely 100%. So if you're looking at that, where a full-blown system, might be $200, $300, $400, $500, and then the monthly at $50 or $60. When you compare that healthcare is $7,000 to $10,000 a month, it doesn't prevent the healthcare that's needed where somebody's 87 years old, but there's a certain age where it really can prevent that. And Charles Strickler did that. So it's a U.S. Senate Committee on Aging, and you can go back and look at the transcripts in the video.
Interesting. Really interesting.
But it was a very powerful statement, and the whole conference was about utilizing technology for elderly. So it had other components of it, but wellness was really the showstopper, where the senators went, "Wow, you really did save." And I think one of the senators that's not on the video really stated that he had a similar experience
by extending his mother's life at home by up to 2 years.
Yeah, Ryan just gave us the link to it. I just sent it all to everyone in your chat function, so you can have that link if you'd like to read that. So thanks for finding that for us, Ryan. One other question is about compatibility. They're saying that when you look at alarm.com, it's only listing DSC 2 gig and Interlogix bed sensors, but there isn't one for Qualsys. Just to be clear, Qualsys operates on the 319.5 frequency, which is the same as GE or Interlogix. So even though it might not list specifically Qualsys there, that sensor will still work on the Qualsys system, and I'm sure that Lainie and these guys will make the appropriate change so that it lists and eliminate that confusion, so it lists the Qualsys on there as well. But any 319.5 sensor should work. And on that same note, we've in a recent software update, we actually made some changes to allow those bed sensors and chair sensors and things like that to work a little bit more intuitively. So when you pair a bed sensor with a system, it used to be, and on everyone else's system, my understanding it does this, you have to pair it in as a door window sensor and then give it bed sensor behaviors. Well, on the IQ panel, when you pair a bed sensor, you can choose from the sensor type as bed sensor, and it will actually behave like a bed sensor. It will speak like a bed sensor. It will do the things that a bed sensor is supposed to do. Same thing for like a wrist pendant. If you've got a wrist pendant or an emergency button, you could then program it to be the type that sets off the siren and sends a medical alert, or you could program it so that it only sends a text message and sends a local alert. So there's really a lot of customization that you're going to get on the IQ panel that you're not going to get on some of these other platforms that are out there. So,
yeah.
But
yours, Jeremy, is actually the only panel that does it, the bed sensor like that. So
well,
it is very intuitive.
And if everybody's wondering why that happens, is particularly on the bed sensor, is that if you look at the wellness tab and those blue lines, a door sensor typically when it's open there's no contact. So in the bed sensor, if you didn't have that second step, the bed would seem occupied. It would be open closed rather than occupied and unoccupied. That's why we do that. So yeah, Jeremy, you're 100% correct. Is that you guys eliminated a step, and it was really exciting to see you guys make that change.
Yep. One other question on the bed sensors.
The dealer site.
Yeah, one other question on the bed sensors is, and I haven't looked at those on your site. Do those come in a DSC 433 version as well, right? Or do they not?
Correct. We cover 433 as well.
Okay, good. So for those of you that are wanting to install that with the DSC Touch, you would just need to make sure you'd buy the DSC 433 bed sensor, and that would then work with the DSC Touch. Either way.
Right.
Well, guys, we're out of time. We've gone way over time, and I really apologize to the people on the line who only expected to stay an hour. Lainie, Tom, thank you so much. Anything that you need to say before we go? Because I feel bad that we've gone as long as we have, but.
No, thank you so much, and we're very interested in working with you. Again, please email me at wellnesssales@alarm.com. We'll enable the wellness feature on your dealer site. That's sort of the first step. I do want you to look at my screen quickly because we do have 2 marketing pieces that describe the Home Starter Kit and the community program with Qualsys. I do have those available that I can send out to the list, but please reach out to me. I'm happy to answer questions, share slides, and help you get started. We certainly appreciate, Jeremy, everything you did to make this happen.
Yeah, we've only scratched the surface, so I'm guessing that based on the feedback we get from today that we'll probably want to do another one of these here very soon. And from our perspective, from Qualsys' perspective, we're going to work on getting you some emails built and put those on our dealer portal that you could email out to your existing customer base and make them aware that wellness is out there. Maybe that would lead to an additional system. Maybe it would just lead to additional sensor sales for the existing system. We're also going to make sure that you've got these flyers on our dealer portal that she's showing, and we're going to try and get you a nice PowerPoint as well that you could then present to, whether it's customers or others, that we could then, give you something that you could use in a sales type situation. So, and other ideas that you've got, if you've got more sales materials and support that you need, we absolutely want to be able to try and provide that for you. So thanks again to everyone who joined today. Your gift today is one of our little wrist pendant buttons that you will be able to get in the program. Oh, so there's the security kit I talked about for the 365. Jeremy. And then everyone who's on is going to get one of these little wrist pendants. So we give us about 4 weeks to get those, but we'll be shipping those out to the distributor that you selected when you registered. So if you said you wanted Edist in New York, or you wanted Triad in Albuquerque or wherever, we're going to send that wrist pendant with your name and email address and phone number to that distributor. Give us about 4 weeks to get it all processed and finalized and finished, and then you'll be able to pick those up. We'll also send you an email before as we send it too, so you'll know when to go pick it up. But thanks again, everyone, for jumping on today. Lainie and Tom, thank you so much for being on. I think we've had a really, really great webinar. And again, this webinar is going to be available online on our YouTube page. Here later on today, we'll finish the recording, uploading it up there. And before we go, I would like to know one last poll. Are you coming to Las Vegas for ISC West at the beginning of April? Really want to know if you guys are going to be there. Hope you guys can make it. If you can, we've got some really exciting things we want to show you. Alarm.com will be on the show floor for the first time this year. You'll be able to see some of these wellness information and the technology and things like that we're building into that, as well as the IQ panel and everything that we're doing there. So really hope you guys can all make it to ISC West. Would love to know if you're coming or not. But other than that, thanks again for joining, and we will see you again soon. Keep watching those emails for our next webinar, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.